What the f*** is that fucking thing?
What the f***? Hello?
What? Chill.
Scary.
Yo, I'm gonna check his vibe. What are you?
Yeah, what are you?
So I get asked a lot about cryptocurrencies by my peers. I often find myself giving lengthy spiels on the importance of Bitcoin. These are discussions I really enjoy having, and it's part of the reason for forming this channel. During my 643rd explanation of Bitcoin, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if I could record this? That way I don't have to repeat myself and risk on missing out important information. And well, here we are. For anyone who is already a watcher of the channel, this series is going to be slightly different to the podcast format that you're used to seeing. These videos will be higher in quality and shorter in length to hopefully stand the test of time. This series is going to be made up of 8 videos. The first one being this one, covering what is money. The second video will cover the gold standard. The third video will cover problem with government money. The fourth video is going to cover what is Bitcoin. The fifth video is going to cover the use case for Bitcoin. The sixth video is going to cover why we can't return to the gold standard. The seventh video will be on the adoption of Bitcoin. And the eighth video will be on the potential issues with Bitcoin. Each of these videos aims to increase your understanding of how money works, the problems with it, and how cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, can go about solving these problems. All of us at one point in time have uttered or heard the words, why don't they teach us in school when talking about money and finances? And by the end of this series, hopefully you will understand why. A lot of what I'm going to talk about is covered in much more details on the Bitcoin standard. So if you are interested in the content of these videos, I do highly recommend reading. I'll leave a link down in the description of where to go and find it. If I was to ask you the question, what is money? How would you answer? To understand the purpose of Bitcoin, this question must first be answered. So let's take a trip back in time before money existed and give a basic example. Let's say I'm a farmer, and on my farm I grow apples. Now, due to all the farming I've been doing, my shoes have become worn out and I need a new pair. I head down the road to the local shoemakers to try and cop myself some fresh kicks. Now, it takes a lot of time and effort for the shoemaker to set a set of shoes. They're not simply just going to give me a set of shoes. Therefore, I need to give the shoemaker something she or he would consider a fair trade for a new set of shoes. Being an apple farmer, I have loads of apples. And if I'm lucky, the shoemaker might be in need of a load of apples. Maybe they're making a giant apple pie or something. We could therefore negotiate and agree on what a fair number of apples would be for a new set of shoes. This would be based on the understanding that the amount of effort to grow the apples would be equal to the amount of effort required to make a new set of shoes. However, it's highly unlikely the shoemaker is in need of several hundred apples. They instead say that if I can get them 3 loaves of bread, then they will be willing to trade me for the new set of shoes. I therefore travel down to the local bakers and try and trade my apples with them. They're also not too interested in my apples, but instead say that if I can get them some logs to fire their oven, then they might be willing to trade. So I go to a lumberjack. They also aren't in need of apples, but say if I can get them some iBack performance sports springs, they might be willing to trade. At long last, I finally managed to find somebody who's crazy enough to trade some springs for some apples. I take the springs to the lumberjack, the logs to the baker, the bread to the shoemaker, all just to get my hands on a new set of shoes. Now at this point, I probably wouldn't have any feet left to put my new shoes on. All of this trading is highly inefficient. Wouldn't it be so much easier if we all agreed that one type of item was of value? That way we can trade the goods we produce for this one item, knowing that everybody else will accept it in exchange for the items which we need. And this is precisely what money is. It's a medium of exchange. A method of exchanging the effort to produce something without all the inefficiencies of trading in between. Reducing this inefficiency means we can spend more time creating and producing things. Therefore, technology and humans as a species are able to develop far quicker. So we have covered why using a medium of exchange is useful. We now need to settle on an item that we all mutually agree is worth something. The people of the Yap Islands used to use stones with holes in them. People in Africa used to use glass beads. But what makes an item good money? Well, there are 4 main properties of sound money. The first property is scarcity. The item we use as money should be hard to obtain. Let's use our example of apples as a form of currency. Apples are relatively easy to obtain. You simply find a tree that has some and go and get some more. Now let's say there are 4 apples that we currently use as currency. You have 2 and I have 2, so we each have 50% of the wealth. But say I go pick 2 more apples and I add them to my pile. I now have 4 and you only have 2. This means I now have 2/3 of the wealth and you only have 1/3. Even though you've done nothing wrong, you are now poor in relationship to me, simply by introducing new monetary supply to the system. Now if everyone was doing this, it'd simply be chaos. Therefore, the item we choose must be hard to come by or hard to produce to stop this from happening. Using the same example, we can understand our second property. Durability. Apples are not very durable. They rot. If my apples were to rot and wilt into nothing, then the value I had stored in them would disappear along with them. I can no longer use the effort they represent to trade for something that I need. Therefore, whatever item we use as money should not change state over time. The third property is divisibility. Let's take the example of the large stones with holes in them. I only want to buy a loaf of bread. I'm not going to give you my entire large stone just for 1 loaf of bread. I'm also not going to break my stone down and destroy its value. We therefore need to choose an item that we can split down to pay for things of perceived lower value. This links closely with our final property, portability. If I need to go trade with somebody who's 100 miles away, I'm not going to be able to lug my stone all that distance just to go and trade with them. The item we use as money must therefore be light and easy to transport. For large transactions, the item must also be able to represent a lot of value. I mean, feathers are light, but if we try to use them as money and gave them equivalent value of 0.1 pence, if I was going to try and buy a house, I'd need an awful lot of feathers. So let's have a think for a second about an item that has all four of these properties. Durability, portability, and divisibility are all physical properties of the item which aren't going to change much over time. However, scarcity in most cases depends on the technology of the time as to how easy it is to obtain. The large rocks with holes in on the Lap Islands were scarce at the time. They required a lot of effort using the primitive tools of the time to make and transport. Similarly, the glass beads used by the people of Africa were also difficult to obtain due to the technology limitations. However, by modern technology standards, these items are no longer difficult to obtain. They are no longer scarce and therefore no longer serve a place as sound money. The item we choose as money then shouldn't be scarce because of the technology of the time. There should be a physical cap on the amount there is. Effectively, a hard limitation, enforced by nature, on the amount of it there is available. This cap makes the item hard to obtain and thus scarce. It's little wonder then that historic civilizations turn to gold as their choice of money. By best estimates, only 197,500 tons of gold has ever been mined in all of human history. Now that may sound like a lot, but it's absolutely minuscule in comparison to the 900 million tons of iron ore mined in Australia in 2020 alone. Not only is gold scarce, but it doesn't corrode, and it's almost impossible to destroy. It's durable. It is possible to divide gold down into small amounts, albeit with a lot of effort, and due to its scarcity, it represents a lot of valuable. Therefore, it's somewhat portable for most transactions. The use of gold in monetary systems is long-standing and well known. It also brings us nicely towards the topic of our next episode, the gold standard. Despite being somewhat basic, I hope this episode has given you a good foundation of understanding. This basic understanding of the philosophy of money will be built on over the course of the next 7 episodes. So please do consider subscribing, ready for when those videos are released. Otherwise, I want to thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. See ya!